Welcome to the PRmoment podcast. This week, we're chatting to Mitch Kaye, who, as many of you will know, is co-founder and CEO of the Academy. And on the show, we're going to look back on 10 years since he and Dan Glover founded the business. The Academy is an independent PR firm in London with a fee income of approximately £7 million, has 56 employees, and as I say, it was co-founded by Mitch and Dan in about 2014. Mitch previously founded Mischief, which he sold to Engine within 5 years of its launch in 2006. The Academy describes itself as a creative and strategic agency. Clients include Amazon, Morrison's, and Burger King. Mitch, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me.
An absolute pleasure. Should we get the how is consumer PR at the moment? I was going to ask you a bit of a market question first, because people always ask me, and it's a difficult one to answer at the moment. Some people are having a tough time, and other people are all right.
Yeah, it is difficult. It's a difficult thing to give one answer to. I can only talk for us. We're in a good moment. We don't take that for granted. I don't even like saying it out loud, because I always feel like I'm going to walk back into 3 problems or difficult emails, but we're in a good moment. 2023 was our best ever year, and 2024 has started in the same manner. So we're good and we're enjoying where we're at, but I do speak to lots of other people who are having a hard time. And I do think it can depend on your client mix. It can depend on the setup. These things go in cycles, as we all know. So I think it's a mixed bag out there. But thankfully at the moment we seem to be okay.
Yeah, but you're not the only people doing okay, are you? Do you know what I mean? There's others. So it's obviously it depends which market you're in. Consumers different to tech, different to healthcare, different to corporate. I was chatting to someone in corporate the other day who just said that because the election keeps getting delayed, then there's a lot of those sorts of budgets are the handbrakes on those as well. So as you say, it's a funny market to sum up currently.
Yeah, it is. There's definitely work out there, and there's definitely people winning, but you kind of don't know what's coming. But I think we've been in that situation for years. People have been talking up very, very difficult times ahead now for probably 3 years. So you kind of just get to the point where you get on with it.
Yeah.
You worry about you look at your pipeline, you look at your clients, you just do the things that you do and hope that the doom merchants are wrong. And so far it feels like in the whole they are.
Yeah. Well, I still think as we came out of COVID, do you remember that there was that sort of 3-month window where we were looking forward to the roaring 20s, but it hasn't quite worked out like that.
No, we're still waiting for the roaring 20s, but
it'll come.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely work there to be done. There's definitely business to be won. There's lots of, if you measure it by pitches, there's a lot of pitches flying around and a lot of briefs coming out. And again, the other measure is existing clients. And, we're fortunate that our clients are pushing on and they've got the appetite to do more. So long may that continue.
Absolutely. I'm going to talk about a few of those trends you just talked about in a moment ago, like pitching and all those types of stuff. But as I mentioned in my intro, it's 10 years since you and Dan founded the Academy. When you launched, what was the plan? And have you had to change that plan much?
Can't believe it's been 10 years. The plan when we launched
seems longer to me, Mitch.
It does. And Dan probably as well. The plan when we launched was, I think what we'd come out of our time at Mischief. We'd sold Mischief to Engine and done that kind of couple of years post sale. And I think we had a very clear idea of what the agency was that we wanted to build. And I think what we identified was there were 2 types of agency. So the first type of agency felt like they were very big global networks, all the names that you would know, who were very powerful businesses, offices in lots of territories, huge client lists, huge reach. And what they did was strategy and data and insight really, really well. If anything, sometimes they fell down on the creativity side. And that isn't a criticism of them, but we know that because when we were at Mischief, we used to win loads of clients who would come along to us and say, look, we've got all this data piled up. We just want a good idea. Just give us a good idea to launch something or to grab attention. And we would win lots of clients that way at Mischief. And then I guess the other type of agency were probably the opposite. So they'd probably come up with 500 good ideas a week. But the problem with those ideas is they lacked the strategic framework, they lacked the insight, they lacked the understanding of strategy and business and what the clients really needed to perform. So an agency that does two things: best in class strategic thinking and best in class creative execution. The left side of the brain and the right side of the brain, which is where our identity comes from. And actually, it's really difficult to do. Most people are good at one or good at the other. So if you could be an agency that could do both, and you could do it in an entrepreneurial, quick, independent way, then we felt that that would be the opportunity. And I think 10 years on, we still believe that's the right opportunity. We've definitely delivered against that. It's not been easy, but that's where I think we've done our best work and had our biggest success by doing those two things together.
Did it take you longer to get that client list that enabled you to do that type of work, if you see what I mean? Because presumably that sort of work is not what everyone wants, not what everyone needs.
It didn't actually, if I'm honest. The first client we had, I mean, this is going back a long time, was UEFA, who gave us a Champions League brief. So it's a pretty good start. I would have just been happy leaving it at that, really, but there you go. And then soon after, we won American Express, and American Express was a very, very big job where strategy and creativity were probably the reason we won, and also the thing that they needed, the combination of both that they needed. So I think once you have UEFA and American Express as your client list, then finding the third client or the fourth client or the fifth client becomes easy because they're big names, they're reassuring. And certainly one difference from setting up the academy to setting up Mischief is there's a track record. So you're not a complete risk or complete, unknown. You've got a track record, and I think that makes adding to a client list quickly a bit easier.
Yeah, definitely. A second time around, we were chatting it before, weren't we? Second time around doesn't happen too often with PR founders. Why is that, do you think? What is it? Is it the energy that people need to do it, and they can't do it again?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not easy. I was warned against it by lots of people. I think we talked about it before. There's pros and cons, like anything, I think.
But you did it, I suppose. That's the other element of this. So did you do it because you needed to do it financially, or did you do it out of choice? Did you have a burning desire, an ambition to do it? What was that sort of nugget of energy that you found?
I think all those things, really, a combination of them. I think ambition is the biggest single thing. Mischief at the end of the day was 8 years from setting it up to exiting Engine, and it was 5.5 years at the point we sold. So it wasn't a long journey. And I think Dan and I felt that there was an agency of the future that we wanted to build, and we felt it was easier to achieve that outside of Engine in the end, with respect to Engine. And so there was a lot of ambition that we hadn't really managed to reach. So there was still that kind of desire to do that. And it is easier second time around in many ways, because you've got a body of work that you can compare it to. You've got something to beat. You've got something to compete with if you're that type of person. I think the things that make it difficult, the energy to build a second brand from scratch, it's hard. Right. And I think somehow there's a magic about the first journey. Every pitch win, every award win, every hire you make, there's a magic about it, because you never really were sure that would happen. Second time round, when you've had a bit of success the first time round, it's not that you expect it, but when you win, you feel like you should be winning. But when you have a setback, when you make a mistake, when someone leaves, when you lose a pitch, when a client complains, you kind of put your head in your hands and you go, I can't believe we're still having these problems. So the highs are probably not quite as high. The lows are even lower, because you feel like you should move past those, which is probably not a great combination. But then you're braver, you're more experienced, and you have seen problems before. So when you have a problem again, you know that you've had that problem previously. You can call upon that body of work, and I think that makes moving past problems easier.
Where's the PR market now compared to 10 years ago, would you say? Is it in a better place or a worse place?
Well, I think it's in a much better place. I think it's a brilliant time I can talk mainly for consumer PR, but I think it's a brilliant time for consumer PR. I feel like if I look at Mischief as an example, that was about grabbing attention, and it was about raising awareness of a brand. and it was about, you know, launching something and just kind of fighting for that noise. I feel like all these years on, it's as a discipline, I think we take ourselves more seriously. I think we're taken more seriously. And I think now, you know, people talk about a seat at the table, but we've definitely got the ear. If we do it right, some agencies out there, and I'm lucky to include us in that. Some agencies have the ear now of, I think, much more influential people. If you're talking to C-suite clients and you're on a long-term retainer and you're part of a trusted group within a business, then the opportunity now is to be that strategic partner and to build understanding of that business and to be the guardians of brand and reputation. And I think that opportunity more than ever before is why it's in a great place. And I think why the job is probably more difficult now, but more rewarding too.
Right. And to be fair, that respect from the C-suite comes from doing good work, really, doesn't it? That's it's as simple as that. If they give you budget, they give you an opportunity, you need to deliver. And there's, in the main, PR's had a good 10 years on that, hasn't it?
Yeah, you definitely have to do good work. I think alongside good work, you've got to give good consultancy.
Yeah.
So sometimes that consultancy can be as simple as telling someone not to do something.
Right.
So best
That's
advice
interesting. To what extent, and I suppose that's linked to your strategy point, is it? How much of your time is telling on creativity and activation, and how much of your time is on consultancy saying, no, don't do that, or do this instead?
Yeah, I mean, if you kept saying no, don't do that, I think they'd probably get to a point where they question the retainer. I mean, it'd be a lovely world to think. It'd be much easier.
Depends what you're telling them not to do, but
yeah, that's true. That's very true. I do think you have to, you know, as an agency, we've always wanted to put work out. So we've always felt, Dan and I have that, we share that, I guess, that paranoia that you're nothing if you're not activating. You've got to put work out. Now that work has to work. So you can have work that wins awards and you can have work that is talked about but doesn't work. And the only people that you can't kid in that is your clients, because they know from their business metrics whether your work works or not. So work that works, prolifically executed, you're nothing if you're not putting out work. But alongside that, the consultancy piece, the point of view, the eyes and ears, the looking down the track and seeing a problem coming early, the being freed from being so far within that organization that you can't sometimes put your head above the water and see what's coming down the line or see what other people are doing. That consultancy piece is really important. But ultimately, if you're going to build a business of scale, you've got to have people in your senior team who can do that alongside you. So if it was only Dan and I doing it, well, then there's a limit to how far you can grow and how much you can do. But luckily, we've got a brilliant senior team. You've got a fantastic managing director, Chris Hydes, who's really experienced and smart and really helps us scale. And we've got brilliant directors who now share the load of being that consultant to their clients. So we're able to do that more.
How quickly were you able to bring in that more senior talent? Because it's you know, it's clearly the biggest cost of the business, isn't it? Did you have to, was that after 18 months, 2 years? When was it on the story you were able to bring in the talent you wanted?
Dan and I on day one, so just the two of us to begin with. I think within 3 or 4 years, we had a senior team. And it was a big point of difference, I think, between Mischief and the Academy. So Mischief was very much rooted in Dan and I. Now, don't get me wrong, we had an absolutely unbelievable team, but it was a fairly junior to mid-level team. It wasn't a senior team. And I think that it probably suited that style of business. But as a result, it certainly was a challenge when we went to Engine, for example. We weren't really structured and geared up towards making the most of that opportunity. Right. Second time round, I think with the vision we had on day one for the Academy, you could only really deliver that with really talented senior people. It could never be about Dan and I, because you just wouldn't reach scale. You could do lots of smaller jobs, but if you're connected to C-suite clients, they need you to be relevant to their business. They need you to understand them, their world, and you can't do that with 2 people. So I think probably by year 3, so fairly early on, we had a senior team, and certainly now we've got the strongest team we've ever had.
Right. We were looking at the other day. Yeah, you do seem to be an agency in form at the moment, and these things, as you hinted at earlier, these things go in fits and starts a little bit. But you've had some significant wins over the past 6 months, 12 months. most recently, of course, Burger King. How does an agency get in form? Because it's an interesting intangible, isn't it?
If I knew that, I would bottle it and sell it. I think it's the hardest thing to do in this business. I think the hardest thing to do is to win. It's very, very easy to come second in a pitch. It's very easy not to be invited to pitch. It's so difficult to win. It's so competitive. We all know each other so well. Lots of our teams have worked in other agencies that we're pitching against. So there are no great secrets, certainly from a pitching point of view. How do you get in form? Probably by never believing that you're in form and by never allowing yourself to believe your own hype. You have to work unbelievably hard to win anything. And it's the same with organic growth. So winning work and winning trust with your own clients, you have to work incredibly hard. The energy to maintain retainers month in, month out. If I look at some of our retainers, Amazon, 8 years, Morrison's 8 years, Disney, Heathrow, our retainers across both Mischief and then the Academy. So we've probably worked with both of those brands for 10 years plus. It takes huge energy to do that. You also have to have brilliant people around you. You have to have talent coming into the business, fresh ideas, fresh thinking. So all those things contribute towards form. But I genuinely believe the main thing is to not believe you're in form, to be paranoid about what might go wrong, to understand that you can be in form 1 minute, but it can change really, really quickly. So you just have to never take it for granted, work really hard, but also just keep focused on work that works.
Well, I was looking at the numbers the other day in terms of the fee income per head, and there's been that sort of belief anyway that PR firms have, a rough ballpark is £100,000 per fee income per head. You guys have got a fee income of £125,000 per head, which is tough to do in lots of PR businesses. It's really tough to do in consumer PR businesses. So how have you managed that?
Well, we're not the cheapest agency on the block. We've got brilliant people. We charge accordingly. We've never shied away from that, really. We bring together the best brains in the industry. And if you have the best brains under your roof, you have to charge accordingly. So that probably speaks of the cost and the charge of working with the Academy. It also speaks of the fact that we've got absolutely brilliant entry-level emerging talent in our ranks too. And again, if you have people in their early 20s who are really talented and really ambitious and are making a name for themselves, well, then I guess when some of your wider team are in that first part of their careers, that probably reflects that number too. In other words, an agency that has 58 staff like we do, but 45 of them are senior and big hitters, would probably find it very difficult to get to that number. I think we've got a really good blend of very experienced, talented senior people, but great emerging talent. We work really hard at bringing in people at that entry level who are really smart. Some of those guys at the moment are doing so well that they've probably been given more and more responsibility early, which probably helps that figure too.
There's been a trend over recent years of increasing project work, less retainer work. I don't know, but it seems to me you've got quite a few retainers. Is that a trend that you've been immune to, or is that one that you've seen as well?
Yeah, lots is spoken about it. I hear lots of things from other people running agencies. I must be honest, we haven't really seen that. Okay. I think we've probably got a disproportionate amount of retainers versus some of our competitors at our size. And that really helps from running a business point of view.
Yeah.
Because you can plan and you
can hire people,
hire ahead of your needs,
yeah.
Which is something we always try and do. And it's really important for us because if you suddenly win Burger King and need to hire 6 people, 7 people, it's really difficult and you make bad decisions.
Yeah.
So we try and hire ahead of our needs, and retainers help us do that. The challenge of retainers is energy, because if you're asking someone to work on Morrison's for 5-6 years running, now they've got all the experience in the world in that sector, but that sector is notoriously difficult, it's fast paced, it can be brutal at times, it can be relentless. So you've got to manage people really, really well. You've got to look at what else people are working on. You can't work on 3 really, really big, really fast paced retainers for too long. So you have to manage your people very carefully. You've got to make good decisions on resourcing, team structures, all the detail. The detail becomes really important with retainers. And creativity is important too. You have to have fresh ideas because you can very easily run out of steam after a year or two and suddenly you're up for pitch. And then it's very, very difficult to keep it. So to keep business that long and to have retainers is brilliant. You wouldn't change it, but it brings a different set of challenges.
Right. And last year, again, we chatted before, the Academy had an 80% win rate in quite a small number of pitches, 15 to 20 pitches. And I don't want to name names, but when you look at other consumer PR firms out there, they tend to pitch a lot more than that. I think you talked about it a while back now, but when you were at Mischief, you were doing up to 70 pitches a year. So we've gone from 15 to 20 pitches from 70 odd pitches a year. That's quite a change in strategy.
Yeah, it's a big change. And it's a really important one for us. I think in honesty, the value of the 20 pitches we did last year is probably worth significantly more than the 70 pitches we did at Mischief.
Right.
So at Mischief, scrappy startup mentality, we went for everything. Pretty much, we turned a couple of things down, but I don't remember doing it too often. We went for absolutely everything. We would very often have 3 pitches in a week. And we'd win.
For a team of about 30 or thereabouts.
Yeah, yeah. And to be fair, we often won them. And it was a strategy that probably suited that business at that time. But when you look back and reflect on that period of time, you learn a couple of things. So number one, if you're pitching 3 times in a week, you're not spending an awful lot of time with your clients. So the biggest opportunity you have is with your existing clients. They've already trusted you. They've already hired you. You're already embedded in their business, but you're doing 3 pitches in a week. You're definitely not going near those clients or making the most of that opportunity. Number 2, you burn people out really quickly because typically new business fits in around the day job. Very hard to resource new business when you're doing 3 pitches in a week. You can try to, but all you would do is have less time for your clients. So you're working nights, weekends, early mornings, you burn people out really quickly. And by the end of it, you realize that you end up missing those opportunities from your existing client list. So what we do now is we turn down lots of business. We focus on the things that we really, really, really want to win, that we're passionate about, that are brilliant opportunities. Does it give the agency a platform to do amazing work? Do we believe in the brand? Do we believe in the client team that we're pitching to? Do we believe in the brief? It doesn't mean that we don't challenge a brief, but are people open to us challenging a brief, or are they dead set on what they want to do? Does the budget in place give us the opportunity to do justice to the brief? And are we already pitching that week? And therefore, if we're pitching that week with one of those other opportunities that fulfills all of those criteria, then one's enough. And as a result, we have an 80% win rate on a much bigger collective body of pitches by doing less. But our organic
the old fun, fame, or fortune criteria of pitch analysis.
Yeah, I mean, and really, it's a very good guide. You know, if I have a queue of people at my desk saying, I really want to work on that if we win it, it's a really good start. When people are not reluctant, but they're not excited about working on something, you have an uphill battle. You should be excited. If you're not excited on day 1 about working on something, it doesn't get easier in year 2. But the best opportunity is organic growth. And alongside our 80% win rate last year for new business, our organic growth was the strongest it's ever been. So you put the 2 together, you have a really good year. Yeah. But you can only do that if you've got the time and the headspace and the focus to spend time with your actual clients.
So did you win more in terms of additional revenue from organic growth from existing clients than you did from new pitch wins?
Probably similar.
Okay.
Probably similar, but normally agencies would rely heavily on new business to either solve a problem or get over the line, whereas you grow with your existing clients, it also sets the following year up. Because if you do the work that works, then they come back for more. So you've got that kind of repeat business. It's
really hard, though, isn't it? Because if you're coming from a position of strength where you've had a good couple of years, you can, what you just said is perfectly logical, isn't it? If those agencies, and it's tough in any business, but it's equally possibly tougher in an agency business to break that cycle. And the obvious way to break a cycle of decline, if you like, is to go out there and pitch for everything you can find.
It definitely is more. It's 100% difficult to do. Probably why it took us two companies, a second time around to learn that lesson.
Right.
I think the other thing is we're all, to varying degrees, addicted to winning. Like Dan and I are very similar in that respect. We love winning. We love competing. We're very, very, that we get an adrenaline rush from pitching and winning. So it is hard not to do that. Winning gives everyone a lift. It can paper over problems, and it just makes everyone feel better. So it's very hard to turn down your business. You don't know when your next brief is coming from, but you have to trust that doing 3 pitches a week is never the answer. Whatever the question is, 3 pitches a week is never an answer. So I think you have to trust that to a certain extent. You have to back yourself, but it's easier said than done. And like I said, it took us a second company round until we learned that lesson.
How did you get on the long list for those big accounts so quickly? Was that part of the Shine merger that you did? Because that's quite, or was that just your people knew you and Dan from previous times? Was it, because that's a critical element, isn't it, to win the sorts of big accounts that you've won? I mean, it's been going 10 years now, so it's obviously, that stage is done and dusted. But early on, that must have been a challenge, right?
Yeah, it wasn't really Shine. The Shine merger happened about a year and a half in.
Yeah.
So we'd already worked with American Express, with UEFA. We were already well underway. What Shine did as a merger was it gave us scale overnight.
Okay.
So we were having lots of conversations with brands. After a year, we won a couple of awards and we made a really fast start. But there were probably 10 of us, Dan, myself, and 8 other people.
Yeah. And if you're hiring 1-2 people at a time, it takes too long. Yeah.
Right. And also, if you bring in too many people too quickly, you just end up as a group of strangers with everyone onboarding everyone. So we're having loads of conversations with people who liked the sound of us, knew of us from previously. They just felt that maybe we weren't at the right size or scale to handle what they would quite like to have thrown at us.
You mean clients now, not
Clients?
people.
Yeah, clients. They just didn't feel like we were big enough as an agency to handle a really big retainer. And despite all of the reassurances we tried to give them, there's only 10 of us. There's me, Dan, and 8 other people.
Yeah.
So the Shine merger in 2016 gave us the opportunity to gain scale overnight. And we went from 10 people to about 35 people overnight. And what that did was it enabled us to say to the Amazons of the world and the Morrisons of the world, we've now got the scale to handle whatever you throw at us. And within 6 months of doing that merger, we'd won both of those clients.
Right.
And we would nenever have won those clients in that moment without that kind of scale. It would have taken.
So that was a critical move, actually. I hadn't quite thought about that. Is because obviously it came with some clients as well. So that in that sense, you weren't increasing your overhead by 3 times without any revenue. So it kind of all fitted and worked quite nicely.
Yeah, it was an amazing deal, and it was a pretty unique deal. I mean, it's a deal that Dan and I could probably only have done with Rachel, who we knew so well and had been on that journey with previously.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do that deal, certainly at that speed, with someone you didn't know. It just wouldn't be possible. But it was pretty unique. And genuinely, I think if you look back 8 years on, you'd have to say it's a good deal for everyone, because we all still speak, and we've grown and grown and grown since then. But there was a critical moment. It was a gamble because we were already winning and doing well. There's a gamble for Rachel as well, who had a brilliant business, but we felt like there was an opportunity to just accelerate that growth with scale. And the 2 big wins that followed that probably, reflected that.
Yeah. I mean, at the time, Shine wasn't growing as quickly as the Academy, was it? So it was kind of a move that worked for them as well. Yeah.
It wasn't, but it was getting on every single pitch list, and its reputation.
That was where my question came from. Yeah. Was it?
Yeah.
But so it did help on the pitch list, but obviously I know it was a few years into the start.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly helped. But I think scale was the key thing. Scale was what we needed.
So a really interesting answer, but just going back to my question, how did you get on those pitch lists? Was that just personal relationships, really? People trusted you from your Mischief days, in essence, and you had a body of work that people were interested to hear from you about?
I think so. I think a new agency is a moment to grab people's attention. We've done what we've always done. We've never overly marketed ourselves. We don't cold call. We don't chase new business. We don't tap people up on LinkedIn to see if they'll meet us for a coffee and talk about the academy. We just focus on the work we do. We focus on our creative reputation. We focus on making our work as good as it can be. And people see that. And, you know, if you take Burger King as a case in point, Burger King knew about our work long before they got in touch, and they were following us as an agency. If you focus on your work and your output and you put lots of work out, I think the rest does follow. So I think that's why we got on the long list to eventually answer your question 10 minutes after you asked it.
No,
I think
your first answer was more interesting than my question, so
there
that's
you go.
fine.
Okay, cool. But I think it's reputation, and all you can do is focus on the work you do every day. And I genuinely think the rest follows, and people know. I think the best clients out there know who's doing great work, and they will go find the people that are doing it.
Yeah, certainly the clients that I think the bigger clients, which are the ones that you kind of prioritize, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, please say your mum and dad have recently retired, or retired the family business, I should say, after 50 years. It was a flooring business, I think, wasn't it? But I'm disappointed to see that you haven't taken it on. What happened there then?
Well, unlike the clients who put us on their long list, they didn't decide to do that, and I didn't get the call, Ben. I mean, I was kind of hoping surely I've done enough over 48 years of being a good son to get even an interview. I didn't even get an interview.
You don't know the amount of money I would have paid to have you come around my house and fit some carpets, Mitch. That would give me huge amounts of joy.
Well, however much money you would have paid to see that, you would have been very disappointed with the outcome because they are definitely the experts, and I'm definitely not fit for purpose to do that job. So yeah, they finally decided to call it a day a month ago. We've had conversations about them in the past because I'm sure I've credited them with lots of things over past interviews. They finally retired a month ago, and I have to say, early signs are that they might be loving this next chapter of their life. And they look about 10 years younger already, which is a lesson to all of us. But unbelievable that they worked into their early to mid 70s and worked 5 days a week. Incredible work ethic and incredible journey for them both. So I'm really happy for them that they're now enjoying a bit more time back.
So that was a nice segue into my next question, I suppose. But so where does the future hold for you down the academy? And are you also going to be, I suppose, winding it down in your mid 70s and disappearing off on a long holiday? What's the exit plan, Mitch?
Well, I was hoping to have a long holiday before my mid 70s. That would be great. The exit plan is to continue building our agency, and we have a unique structure where we've designed a way of scaling creatively, and I think that's in full flow, and it feels like we've got many years ahead of growing. And to be honest with you, we're enjoying being independent. We're enjoying being the masters of our own destiny, and we're enjoying being in growth. So we're not really looking too far beyond that. Will I be doing it in my mid 70s? I don't know. I mean, I'd love to think that you'll be interviewing me. We'll both be getting on a bit. I think you're much younger than me, Ben, but I'm not sure.
Don't look it, Mitch. But no, I don't think so. I don't know. I think you're a little bit older than me. I won't embarrass you by on air by guessing your age. But yeah, I'm mid 40s, me. But it's my birthday yesterday. Sorry, 2 days ago. So there you go.
Well, I was obviously waiting till now to wish you happy birthday. But
thank you very much, Mitch. You missed it.
I don't know. I'm not sure I'll match their longevity. What I do know is that I'd always have to work. I'd always have to do something.
Well, is that right? So, but what does that mean? Does work mean improving your golf handicap, or does work mean does it have to have a commercial element to it for it?
Probably for me, I think my own belief is that everyone needs a healthy amount of aggravation in their life. I think it keeps them sharp.
Okay.
I think you have too much aggravation and too much stress is obviously very bad for you. I think you can come out of the game too early, and I'm not sure that's good for you either. I look at mum and dad, and for all of the stress they had in their business, I think it kept them young and it kept their mind sharp. And I think hopefully they'll reap the benefits of all of that now. I think you can shy away from that too early, and I think you lose a part of your identity. So I'd never want to do that. I can only see myself working, but maybe in a different challenge in a different place in the future.
Right. The old use it or lose it
Exactly.
mentality when it comes to the later stages of life.
Exactly.
That's, that's an interesting segue into this next question. You and Dan Glover have worked together for a long time, haven't you? How long is it?
18 years.
Okay, I thought it was a bit more than that. Okay, but it's a long
Feels like,
time. It's not
feels like,
really a creative
feels like
partnership, is
longer.
it? It's your partners in business. It's not really a creative partnership, but even so, there must be an element of how do you keep it fresh? You obviously get on. That's clear. But you know, it's a marriage to an extent, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. How do you keep it fresh? Wow, we've strayed into a whole different territory now. Well, I think a couple of things to say about Dan and I. We didn't look to become partners. You know, I hired Dan as an account manager on day one. If I had to look for a partnership similar to the one I have with Dan, I think it's impossible. And actually, many times over the years, people have asked me about Dan and I. Maybe it's been a founder who's been looking for a partner.
Yeah,
And the
it has
honest
to
advice I've
evolve,
given,
is what you mean. It has
yeah,
to
and the
evolve.
honest,
You can't just glue it together.
no, I really don't think you can. And if you try looking for a partner, I don't think you just can't find that kind of chemistry. So it is luck. There's a huge amount of luck. I think probably what explains our longevity is we're very different people. I mean, we really are very different people, but we have some very important things in common. So we have the same work ethic. So if one person's working hard and the other one isn't, I don't think you get to 18 years. I think it
No.
unravels really quickly. We both have the same work ethic. We both work at the same pace. So we are quick by nature. We just work very, very quickly. That's how we both like to work. Again, if one person is constantly keeping the other person waiting, I think 18 years, I think you get found out. Work at the same pace. I think we laugh at the same things. And I think we get irritated by the same things. And I think there's an incredible friendship. You know, ultimately, you wouldn't want to let each other down because you're friends. I mean, he is my closest friend outside of my family. And you know, we've grown up together over that many years. We've been at each other's weddings. We know each other's families. I'm his daughter's godparent. You know, we've got very, very strong roots together. So at the heart of everything, you just wouldn't want to let each other down, which is the most important thing, I think, in a partnership. But having said all of that, I mean, we fight all the time. You know, we argue regularly. Um,
Fists.
no, he wouldn't
I was
dare.
joking, Mitch. I was joking.
I mean, he's probably come close a few times, Ben, but thankfully we haven't ever crossed that line. But
Yeah.
no, we disagree the whole time and we challenge each other like mad. And we're never really in a comfort zone with each other because it's just not in our personalities. And I think if you put all of those ingredients together, I mean, 18 years is incredible, but I would say it is friendship at the heart of it and trust and all those and respect and all those things. So that's how we do it.
Yeah, and you do think about things a lot, you two, don't you? Sometimes when I ask you a fairly, minor question, and I get a much more in-depth reply than I'm
We're talking
expecting.
10 minutes later. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Interestingly, as you've got that partnership is absolutely, at the core of the business. What you've done is bring in senior people around that partnership. That you must have had to think a little bit about how you do that because you don't want it to be the Dan and Mitch show, do you?
No, in fact, we're really keen. It's not the Dan and Mitch show. There's nothing good about that.
No.
If it's the
Well,
Dan and Mitch,
you can't grow, can you? You
can't
can't.
grow, and genuinely with the business we're building now, if it's the Dan and Mitch show, then it's a failure
Yeah.
because
But well,
some
that's what I mean. So you haven't done that. So how have you managed to do that? Because it's quite because you've got two strong personalities at the core of it, and then you've had to layer a senior team around that. So it's how did you do that?
I think two ways. I think we've learned to listen more and we've learned to bring other people in and lean on other people and trust other people more. So I think part A of that answer is how we behave around a management team. And I think part B is finding the right people who can work around us and keep us honest and tell us sometimes what we don't want to hear and challenge us. And I think that combination is really important too. We are at our best. I guess with all strong personalities, we're at our best around strong people. So if I look at our management team now, Chris is really experienced. Chris set up M&T Saatchi PR and built it for a decade. So on day one of Chris arriving, he had as much experience as we did and is a brilliant partner.
Yeah.
Is so calm and so unflappable, is brilliant for us. And we've got directors who have come in from all different backgrounds. Some have joined fairly recently. Some have been on the journey with us all the way through. So you've got a real combination of people who are homegrown, if you like, versus people who have been in lots of other agencies and bring lots of knowledge with them. But the combination of people, a brilliant finance director, absolutely fantastic finance director who just makes sure that we don't have to, that side of the business is looked after.
How big was the business when you employed a finance director? Yeah,
roughly. We should have employed a finance director earlier. She's been on board for a couple of years.
Okay.
But really, we probably could have done with her a year or two earlier. And
Right.
if I had my time again, I would have brought her in earlier because it's been a game changer since she joined.
In what way? In what? Because it's a big non-client facing fee salary to absorb, isn't it? That's why people obviously don't do it, which is why I ask about it.
Sure.
But how did it change? Because you obviously have an accountant you talk to on a regular basis. You have a bookkeeper. How having that FD in house did it help you?
Because when you're running at 100 miles an hour and you're in fast growth, your ability to take your eye off the ball and miss something,
right,
not have the analysis of numbers and miss a trend or a pattern or a missed opportunity is huge. And actually, whatever a finance director costs, those hires, if you get them right, they pay for themselves. Right. Because your growth, you sustain your growth with the right people around you. And it's not an easy hire to make for a younger business because it is a big cost and they're not client facing. But honestly, since Sangeeta arrived in our business, we've jumped up 3 levels and she's been on board less than 2 years. So right. There's been a big jump up for us.
You're just using your money more efficiently in essence, is what's behind that, right?
I definitely think that, and also it makes probably me more than Dan on the business side of things. It just makes me more scalable. I can do more.
You're not fiddling about with the numbers
by worrying about what's happening over here because I've got really good people in place who can look after it.
Right. Okay. And the last question I was going to ask you was, you hinted at it earlier when you said you were set up for growth, was your column strategy, which if I'm honest, sounds broadly similar to other strategies that I've heard, but you're a big believer in it. And I think you think it's different from how a lot of people do it. So go on, just talk us through it.
So this is influenced by the world's biggest design agency, a company called Pentagram, who you may know. And Pentagram have a unique structure. They think it's unique. You probably don't. I'm
the cynic, Mitch. I'm always the cynic. So that's my role.
Pentagram have scaled to become the world's biggest design agency through this structure. And so they have a series of practices where each practice comes into Pentagram, runs its own autonomous practice, but the heads of those practices team up and combine their brains to make the overall picture better. So if you translate that structure to the academy, we today have 4 PR columns. One is typically FMCG, one is tech and entertainment, tech, one is entertainment and culture, and one is business, finance, kind of that horrible word, corpseumer, but that kind of blend between the 2 areas. We also have a studio, that would be the 5th column. And we're planning to open column 6 and column 7 in the next 12 months. And we're identifying now what those areas might be. So it's a way of achieving 3 things that otherwise might be difficult to achieve. Number one, it keeps clients very close to their senior people, because the people at the top of each column, those columns are self-contained. They're capped at a certain size. So those leaders of those columns, they have a portfolio to look after, but not an ever-growing, ever-increasing portfolio. It's capped at a certain size. So that enables those leaders to stay very close to those clients, give them the consultancy that we talked about earlier. The second thing is how you develop your staff. So when you work in a typical kind of pyramid structure in lots of other agencies, and it gets wider and wider and wider at the bottom, you get to a point probably about £2 or £3 million in, where it's like the Wild West, where you're working into 4 or 5 different people, you're across 6 different jobs. Even getting a holiday form signed off can take weeks. Everything is just difficult. When you work in a column, you're nurtured, you're looked after, you're protected, and you're one of a fairly small group of people. It's like working in a small agency. So you're replicating a series of small agencies. And I think the third advantage is the quality of the creative output. So when you have creators at the top of columns, just looking at the creative output of that column, you can make sure that your standards stay very high, and your work, the work that leaves the building, is always good, because again, it's a smaller agency. In the same way, it's easier to control the quality of a smaller agency. You're replicating that in your growth. As a result, you keep those retainers. You also retain your people, because when your people rise to the top of a column, they might start as an account exec or as an account manager. They rise to the top of a column. Their options are they can run that column. They can also leave that column and come over here, and we will back them to set up their own column over here. So column 4 is a great example. Sophie Pettifer, I never hired Sophie. She was an account manager when we did the merger with Shine that we talked about earlier. So I met Sophie in 2016 as an account manager. Sophie's now the director leading column 4, which is entertainment and culture. So Sophie's been on that journey. She's learned all the way through and is now the head of that column. So you can retain your staff long-term. You can give them an entrepreneurial pathway that they might otherwise have to leave to find. And you can protect all the other things around it too.
Brilliant. But the key is the column sizes are capped at a certain, I don't know whether there's a uniform cap, but the idea is that they're capped, and then they go on, once you have to, so you might have a finance column, and if it gets too big, you launch a fintech or something like that. Okay.
Yeah, £2 million is the revenue cap that we put on columns at the moment. Okay. And if they grow beyond that, then you either go more specialist in terms of what the next column kind of launching out of that one might be, or you have a second consumer PR column, a second FMCG column. A column can also be a different discipline. So it could be advertising one day, it could be something completely different. A column can also be a different market. So it could be Manchester, it could be Edinburgh, it could be Stockholm or New York.
Could be America, Mitch.
Could be America. Not quite yet.
Right. But the other one on that was the you about the creative and the strategy. So those sorts of people that you have within the business, did you say that they are specific to each column, or do you share them amongst the columns?
A bit of both. So you have creativity in each column. You've got some shared services too, but I think ultimately the future growth would be to have as much dedicated to each column as possible. Right. In a sense, you'd be replicating Dan and I at the top of each column.
Right. Mitch Kaye, that was really enjoyable. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
That was great. If you enjoyed that, you might also enjoy the PRmoment Awards. So do check out the PRmoment Awards microsites. The events are coming up in April, both in Manchester and London. You can grab your tickets and see some of the best work that's going on in PR right now at both those events. Mitch, great to have you on again. See you soon.
Thanks, Ben.